Hello and welcome back to episode 3 of the Brandon Smith podcast. This week I had Richard on from the King House Storehouse Food Bank in RHYL. He came on to discuss the role of the food bank, how they worked in the local community, the challenges with COVID-19 on the food bank, and a little bit about his personal story from his tough time being an alcoholic to now working at the food bank. I hope you enjoy this one. If you do, subscribe, leave a like on the video and comment your thoughts down below. If you have an interesting story to tell, there's an email down in the description for you to get in contact with me to get you on the podcast. Enjoy this one. Okay, so I just wanted to start first of all by asking you, Richard, about your role within the food bank. So what would you say your average day in the food bank looks like at the minute?
Well, to be honest, there's a big team. We all just chip in to make sure everything's done. We have Dave and Sarah Jones, who are the coordinators and the creator of the food bank, and I'm sort of underneath those. So my average day, I've been out this morning, 8 o'clock this morning, a couple of supermarkets, doing all the shopping, making sure the shelves are full for the day. Then I'd go in, I'd manage the phones, the emails, so when the referrals come in, I'll do the delivery schedules for the amount of drivers we have of the day. Every day just keeping on top of the warehouse, stock rotation, making sure everything goes in the parcels that should be in there and nothing's missed. The drivers will go out, then I'll update the database. Sounds a bit formal, a database, but a database is just purely for a record so we can see sizes of families, how often they're accessing, if there's a greater need. But for example, we had 150 loaves of bread donated last week from Asda, Kilmer Bay. So we were able to go on the database, look at all the families with lots of children, and we just go around and surprise them and give them loaves of bread and butter and stuff like that. So I update that and make sure we've got numbers. And again, at Christmas, if we have turkeys donated or stuff, we'll make sure those big families are looked after. So pretty much everything, really. But I just love it.
Fantastic. And if we go back in time now to how this all started, I would be really interested to hear about the story, the idea, why it came about. Many people listening will know that RHYL is a needy area. There's a lot of challenges economically and employment-wise for people. Can you explain what the heart was behind starting the food bank? Why did it start? And the story behind that?
Yeah, I mean, I've been on the food bank 2.5, coming up 3 years now, but the food bank's been going for 8. And it just blows me away every time I'm told this story. So Sarah and Dave Jones, the coordinators I mentioned, they were just sat at home, and it was a Trevor McDonald program. I can't remember if it was a news or a documentary, but basically they were highlighting food bank needs in a big city. They can't remember if it was Liverpool, Manchester, Leeds, Birmingham, but the whole program was about food banks in them areas. And Dave Jones just said to Sarah, "We need to do this for real." So Sarah just turned around to him. She's brilliant, Sarah, and just said, "Don't be daft. You know, these are big cities. This is why they need food banks." And Dave was like, no, it's in my heart. You know, he's got such a beautiful heart to help people. You know, he takes the food as well, but he just sees how people are, the well-being type thing. So he just couldn't let it go. And I'm grateful he couldn't. So him and Sarah have gone to our church and said, "Guys, we've got this idea. You know, food banks are obviously known of, but we want to start one in RHYL." So the church discussed it, and with the church being a charity, they backed Dave and Sarah, and so the food bank was born. And it literally started with one kitchen cupboard in Dave and Sarah's garage.
Wow.
That's how it all came about, and that was 8 years ago. That's how we were sort of born.
Wow. So from there to what you are now, but obviously along the way there's a lot of challenges. How did the community first respond to the food bank starting?
Yeah, so the biggest challenge was, so if you imagine a food bank that's just been born from a pair of huge hearts, an idea pitched to a church, and a cupboard in a garage, you're like, where do you start? So they really got their heads together, and the first places they started was the job centre in RHYL and Sainsbury's in RHYL, and they were just so fortunate. So the idea behind the job centre was, obviously, we'd love a food bank where nobody needed to access, that we don't need to do any parcels, so there wasn't that need. But we just know in this sort of life, this economy that we're in, and everything that happens day to day, it's just not feasible. So the job centre idea was people that were unfortunate enough to lose their jobs. The job centre could say then, well, we know this food bank, that if you ever need help, contact us and we'll refer you. So that's how the sort of referral started. So then Dave and Sarah would think, so right, so we can get the word out there through agencies. So they went to Citizens Advice and NACRO and all the governing agencies in RHYL that help people in need. So that was that first step. So the idea of getting the community to donate was through social media. So that was born with not many people knowing how to really utilize it 8 years ago. And so the big idea was in Sainsbury's, if we could put a collection point where shoppers could do their shop, buy a few extra tins and put them in the collection point. So there's a lady called Jan, excuse me, she's retired now, but this was 8 years ago. She said, absolutely, it's an amazing idea. So the box went in Sainsbury's and it's been there since. So that sparked the idea then to put other supermarkets. So we've got co-ops, even as far as Botherwithan, collection points all over. And obviously without COVID, people could contact us and just drop off. So it took a lot of work. So Dave Jones was sort of the leg man. So he was going around all the agencies. Hey, we're here if you need us. This is what we do. This is what we're trying to offer. And just let us know as much help as you need, type of thing. And then Sarah would be behind the scenes on the phones, seeking any funding we could access as a charity.
So obviously, you know, right at the start, you were quite a small team, I assume, trying to really help a massive problem really in RHYL, and that it certainly is a problem. You know, there's so many people are unemployed, single parents trying to look after their kids, and obviously with the current situation in the world, it makes it that much harder. Over the years you've grown. Can you take me through that growth, how things have changed, how the team has changed, and the challenges that came along with trying to reach the big problem?
Yeah, absolutely. So with the small team of Dave and Sarah Jones and a couple of volunteers from church, like you say, that it was a really small team because the need was great, but our being well known wasn't. So we had to just be patient, get out there, just say, guys, we're here to help, come and access us. But right at the beginning, as I mentioned, Sarah Jones from Cambrian Photography, she knows this a famous photographer. Anyone that's into photography, I'm not personally, I don't know him, but his name was Tim Wallace. So he was the photographer that does Aston Martin's, Jaguar. He even did photos with Daniel Craig and James Bond right at the beginning. So he's quite well known in that type of field. And he contacted Sarah Jones, and said, you need to find me a venue. So bearing in mind, Sarah's thinking now, well, he's never spoken in the UK. He does everything abroad. So thinking, why would he need a venue? So it came about, find me a venue and I'm going to come and promote your food bank. So short notice, Sarah managed to contact another church who allowed us to use the building because of size. And he said, I've got a small photo of Daniel Craig and Aston Martin, and we're going to auction it off. So in this meeting, it was auctioned off, and that it was only a small photo, but it got £800. So that was donated to the food bank. Plus, obviously, through social media and everything, this had spread. So that gave us a bit more recognition. So donations started coming in. So as donations started coming in and the name was going out there, then more volunteers from the church were sort of drafted in. So the team started building, and it came about where Sarah and Dave were approached to do a little section on panorama about the King Store Food Bank. And so that was aired. And at work, Sarah Jones, some businessman, came in and said, "Was that your food bank on Panorama?" So Sarah, bless her, she's only 5 foot something. And she was like, "Yes, why?" So, "Oh, that's absolutely shocking," he says. So he slams these keys down. He says, "That's from a big warehouse." Told us where it was. And he said, when in his pocket, he says, "Right, and there's £1,000 to go towards it. You guys are amazing." So
Wow.
just through that Panorama program, that came about. So that took us to, I can say where, I won't say the businessman, but that was in Dizzyth.
Mm.
And then that grew, and then we outgrew where we were there. And then we moved to a football club that had a bigger area. It was massive. And eventually we outgrew there. And then recently, well, 18 months ago, I think, we acquired the old rugby club in RHYL, where we are now, about 200, 300 yards away from our old church. So the old rugby club's big. So we've got a big room at the back now that we call the warehouse, and we've kitted it all out so it's clean and safe and tidy. And yeah, just year by year, just outgrowing where we were. The size of the building now, I think we're there now. I think that's going to be our resting place. But it's just been an amazing journey. But again, without these business people, without these people that Sarah's known, and just every people just wanting a beans or £5 donation, that couldn't help to grow where we are now. And the size that we are now, looking at our database, tomorrow, end of day, we're probably going to hit the 1,000 people mark that we've fed since COVID. So without this growth that we've gone through, we would never ever be able to sort of keep up with that demand. So it's a proud moment to say we've grown this much and we've fed 1,000 people, and children and adults, that is. But also sad that we've still got to be that size that we need to keep, feeding that amount of people. But yeah, it's just a pleasure to watch it grow and just be a part of, and just have that opportunity to help the community.
For sure, and as you said, like it's incredible what you guys have managed to do with feeding that many people. But again, as you said, it's sad that there is that need in RHYL, and that there is that, that people struggle so much. Do you think that the demand has gotten more since COVID-19? Have you seen more people come to yourselves, maybe because they've lost their jobs or because they've been furloughed or whatever? Have you seen more of a demand for your services?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, before, so we've noticed the rise from the 19th of March. So I think Boris Johnson did his announcement on the day after Mother's Day, which was the Monday, but we were sort of busy the Wednesday before. Before COVID, we were looking at 2 or 3 parcels a day. So then that would be average 15 a week. Our peak days at the moment, we're doing 15 to 20 parcels a day.
Wow.
So we worked it out as statistically, as an average, the increase is 326% growth in the amount of referrals we're getting through. In that 1,000, there are families we've helped 3 times. So but them numbers are counted 3 times because we provide the same food each time. So, we're feeding them again. But yeah, so over 350% increase. At the beginning, it was mind blowing, and there were so many challenges at the beginning. But like you say, it's everyone. It's not before. It might be people that have got benefits that have sanctioned or problems applying for new benefits and they've got to wait type thing. But since COVID, it's literally everyone. Self-employed have been hit, business owners have been hit, people seeking benefits, they've got that time to wait, so they're needing help. So at the beginning, all this panic, that was the big rise. This last week, it's calmed down slightly. So I think with everything the government are trying to do to make sure people are like you say, with the furlough pay or the rate relief, or whether it's just benefits up and running quicker. I think that's got a huge part to play where it's gone a bit quieter, but we're still, this last week, 200% higher than what we were doing. So even now it's starting to fizzle out a tiny bit. It's still a huge increase on what we're normally doing.
And with COVID-19, obviously a lot of people have been stocking up on food, have been maybe taking more than they really need. Have you seen a less amount of donations, or are people still as kind, giving as much as usual to you?
Yeah, it's been quite humbling, really, because at the beginning we were in the same boat. So I'd go to supermarkets and I'd just explain who I was, show ID, and supermarkets, bar one, they'd rather me not say, but they were saying, I'm sorry, but it's the same, 2 or 3 tins. So when you're doing 20 food parcels a day and our food parcels last a week, trying to find that amount of tins without people being able to donate. So people would do their shopping. So if they can only buy 3 tins, whereas normally they'd buy 5 tins, so they're 3 for them, 2 for us. I can't blame them for just getting what they need. So right at the beginning, the donation pickup points were empty. But I think going 8 years, people know now that they can just contact and donate in other ways. So even though we were struggling to buy food, I would literally go around 12 supermarkets, buy whatever I could get, 2 or 3. And then I think it was like 3 weeks in, one supermarket said, look, if there's 6 trays of 12, you can take 2. So you're leaving stuff for everyone else and you're stocking up as well. So if it wasn't for that generous, supermarket that let us do that, we would have been closed in the 2nd or 3rd week, I believe. Oh. So because there wasn't the money was coming in to buy it, but we couldn't buy it. So it was catch-22, really. The public, bless them, were phoning up and texting and messaging, guys, we can't get any extra tins for you. Can I donate £20 and you go and get it? So we were getting donations, which in a way was better because we could monitor what we had more of and what less. So instead of just getting random stuff, we could specify what we needed and what we could buy. So without those 2 things, the public donating and that supermarket allowing us to buy extra, got a bit of grief in the supermarkets where people would, oh, that's disgraceful, and I had to explain, well, we're from the food bank, and and 2 or 3 times people, oh, I'm so sorry, here's £10 towards the food bank or something, So yeah, it was really tricky at the beginning, but the public have never, even through this, even more so, I believe, the public have just come on guys, we need to get through this together. What can we do to help? And people were the phone just didn't stop the first couple of weeks, asking what we needed and how the people could help. And yeah, without all that, big hats off to the public and the supermarkets that have helped us, because that 1,000, if we did this 2nd, 3rd week, we'd say, well, we did 100, but we ran out of food, without those couple of things. So it's just really humbling to see the community just, no matter what's thrown at them, they've just come together. And not just RHYL, just that in Within, Melodin, everywhere, people that know us or have heard of us through social media, they just want to help others, and it's just such an honor and a privilege to watch that sort of come about.
Yeah, and the community coming together in times which are really hard, and you'd expect people maybe to be a bit selfish at this point because they want to, and I do think at the start of COVID we did see that people were a bit more selfish and maybe were thinking, right, I need to stockpile on all this, I need to get all of this, I need to get all of this. And yet I think people have now realized that actually the best way for us to come through this is to work together and to put each other before one another. And I think we have seen that a lot more over the past few weeks because, as I said beforehand, I felt people were a little bit more selfish. And I think that a community food bank just really epitomizes all of that, it's not about me. I'm blessed to be in this position that I am, where I don't need the services of the food bank, but the people who generally need it, and I'm able to provide that. But
All right.
obviously, with social distancing, you guys won't be able to probably have as many people in the warehouse. Has that been a real challenge for you? You know, the demand is so high, and yet maybe you guys can't have the same amount of people on the floor.
Yeah, yeah, it's a brilliant point. So right at the beginning, it was a huge task because before we did anything, we have to source PPE, so gloves, masks, visors. But even with those, as soon as people realised how much we were doing, gloves were donated, masks, washable masks, a lady made for us, visors, a gentleman 3D printed it for 12 for our team. Took him 2 days, and he was doing nursing homes and things like that. So in between his busy schedule, he's provided these 12 visors. Right at the beginning, obviously research. So no one knows, from our team anyway, no one knows this in great depth, what this virus is capable of. You hear what you hear on the news, and everything that's spoken about this virus. So before we went out, I personally made sure, and our pastor made sure, all those guidelines and procedures were in place to protect not just us, but the people that we deliver to. So we would have a schedule, a procedure list, such as, the size of our warehouse, 2 meters, if you go round in a bubble, if you like, we can have 3 people in. So with the amount that we're doing, we'd probably have 6 crossing over each other. So obviously that had to be sorted out. So the best plan we sort of came up with was, right, we'll have warehouse team and we'll have drivers. So I would still do the driver schedules and make sure all the shopping was done before anyone even turns up. Then 3 people in the warehouse. So we've got 3 different sections. So we just pack those sections. The drivers are in the car park, so there's a lot more space. So 3 or 4 drivers would contact the users, the service users, to make sure they're in, to make sure if it's safe to deliver, to explain to them how we do it. So we phone them before we leave. When we get there, we would deliver just like Asda or whatever, in a box or bags, depending on the size of the family or individuals. And then once back in our cars, we'd give them another ring to say it's now safe to come and collect your parcel. So it's all done discreetly and as safely as possible. So at the beginning, putting 2 meter lines in the warehouse, marking it all up, because we sort of know when something happens, the increase is going to be there. So we would never want to be in a position where the people accessing aren't safe, that we weren't safe, that we weren't taking it seriously. And I mean, the phone's not stopped. We want to volunteer. We're not working, obviously.
Yeah.
We could literally have 50 volunteers, but we just can't do it because we can't facilitate a safe distance between all those people. So the first 2 weeks was sort of, we knew about the social distancing, so we had a small team. So it was tricky for like 5 people to do 20 food parcels, say, our biggest that we've done in one day. So a family, for instance, with 4 children, 2 adults, 4 children, they'd have about 12, 13 shopping bags to last them for the week. Wow. So then that's just one referral. So you've got 3 people packing it, and then you've got a driver that's got to load it into his car, take it, drop it at the doorstep, and they're about 3 or 4 parcels each. So it's work for about 10 people really on a bigger scale like that. But with everything that's sort of been put in place, no matter what we think about it, they are the guidelines, they are the rules. So we've just adapted, and it's just so proud that a team, not one of them said, oh, I'm not doing that, or I'm not doing this. They've just kept that heart that we're there to help people. So whatever we have to do to coincide with being able to stay open, so we would never want to jeopardize one of those procedures and then be closed down, because then we couldn't help the people we're helping. So hats off to the team. They've just adapted so well. It's all there. It's all written down, so they've read it, so they've studied it, and yeah, just trying to stay as safe as possible for people accessing and us. So people that want to come and donate, we have to give them time slots, because if we just left it donate when you want, you could have a dozen people coming to the back door. So a safety box was put so they can place in the box and back away, and we can pick up. So it's been a bit of a large learning curve, but yeah, not one of us have had a sniffle. Not one of us has, had any symptoms. So taking them precautions and them safety procedures has definitely paid off.
Yeah, and in these times, it could be so easy just to say, "Oh, the demand is too much. We don't have the facilities to do it. We don't have the numbers to do it." And it could be so easy just to put it to one side and say, "Okay, we'll resume this when this is all over, when everything is settled." But the reality is the demand is greater, and these people generally now rely on you guys, um,
Yeah.
and that must be quite a privilege, but also a burden in some sense, I guess, that you feel, okay, I've got to, not that you're fully responsible for them, but you do have a responsibility over them. There's, as you said, a massive increase in people who are using the food bank. Some people may think, can I use the food bank? Am I eligible to use it? Some people may feel embarrassed about going to the food bank. Could you explain who the food bank is for, and what would be the process of getting help from the food bank?
Yeah, absolutely. This is a brilliant point. Through COVID, we've seen and heard spoken to people that have said, "Oh, I haven't had any food for 3 weeks because I didn't know if I qualify, or I've been a bit too embarrassed to ask for help. I've never needed help." A little backstory on me: 2.5 years ago, I was an alcoholic, homeless on the streets of RHYL,
Okay.
and I've accessed food banks, I've accessed help, and through the church that our food bank's with, like we're a part of, I've come through that. So without that help along the way, such as food banks and obviously church further down the line type thing, I'd still be there. I'd still be homeless. I'd still be an alcoholic. But this is what we try and emphasize to people: no matter your background, no matter your walk of life, no matter your upbringing, race, anything, it really doesn't matter. The food bank is for anyone that has a need, that through circumstances, whether good or bad, just that's what we're there for. Please get in touch. So the best way to do it is we work on a referral system. So basically, this just helps us control things a bit better. So if we were doing self referrals, say, so if people contacted us and say, "I need a food parcel," we'd be getting 50 a day probably, and we would be, closed pretty quick. So as I said at the beginning, the biggest step was contacting agencies that would work with people in need. So it could be, Citizens Advice, Job Centre, child services, social services, probation, anything, doesn't matter. So basically, the service user would contact the agency, or that's how they can do it now. Contact the agency. If you're not linked with an agency, Citizens Advice is your best bet, because they could sort of cover everything, and we work well with them. So they would contact the agency that they work with or know of, if not Citizens Advice, explain the situation, and they'd just ask some discrete questions. They would log the details, so the agency will have the details, they send it to us, and then at the moment, because of everything going on for safety and stuff, that going out and come in, and to control things a bit better, we then deliver to the door, and it's placed at the door, and then, like I say, we back away at a safe distance, let them know that it's safe to collect. And so I'd love just to tell people, it's done discreetly. Don't be too proud, don't be too hard on yourself thinking you failed because you need this help. Our previous pastor came along with a saying that he'd seen, and we've used it ever since. It's a hand up, not a hand out. So I'd really encourage anyone that's, I mean, if you don't need it, obviously don't come to us. But if you are stuck, if you haven't got your next meal, this is the whole point why this was started up, and this is why the community's come together, donating tins and money for this purpose for anybody that needs it. And I mean, with that large increase, with our hearts to help people, we normally operate inside of RHYL, but with the high demand of what's needed through COVID, we've even gone to Witham, Prestatyn, Melodin, Rutland, Kimmel Bay, Abergele, the odd 2 or 3, where they can't access their local food bank because of whether donation, we don't get into that type of thing. They just can't get a food bank. So they've come to us. And so especially if you're in the area of RHYL, that help has been brought together through donations and through volunteers. Every member of the team is a volunteer. There's no one that's paid. And, we all come in with a smile on our face that we have that privilege and that honor to help people. And, like we say every day, I mean, I think yesterday we did 4 parcels, so we were happy in a sense that it's less, but then unhappy because there's still 4 families that are needed. Not that we don't want to do it, but that's our heart, that everyone receives that help. And hey, who knows, in a decade or so, maybe food banks won't be needed. But until then, we're definitely here, and that's what we do. So no matter what the circumstance, just get in touch.
I just wanted to ask about your story. Obviously, you said that you were an alcoholic on the streets of RHYL, and now you're working in the food bank. Can you tell us about the process between being in that point and then coming to the food bank? How did your life change, and how did you get into it?
Yeah, so I'd always worked from the age of 12 in the catering industry, and I'd never been out of a job. But with the catering industry came, the drinking after work. It sort of just comes with the territory, and just over time, that drinking came more and more and greater and greater, and I just lost control of it. So I was still managing to work somehow. I mean, getting up in the mornings and drinking, in between shifts in the afternoon drinking. I just lost control. So, sort of a longer story shorter, I was at my family home, and mum and dad just literally said, I mean, they put up for years trying to help me through with AA and counselling, and just nothing would click. So I'd gone off in a huff after an argument, and my mum had basically said, if you leave this house now, you never come back. So I was drunk, so I just thought she was just, oh, she'll forgive me and everything. But she stuck to it, and she locked me out, and I was in this whole new world. I was, I'd always worked. I had money in my pocket, and it was crazy. So I was dropped off by my sister in RHYL, and that was it. So I'm like, right, I'm homeless now, and previous to this experience, I'd literally walk past a homeless person and say to myself, you just get a job, it's easy, just having that judgment. But I was on the streets and in and out of hostels for about 2 years.
Wow.
And, it was the hardest thing in my life, but also the most beneficial and the most humbling. And it really broke me down inside, that judgment, that way that I saw society and took things for granted. And it was just a lucky break. I was in a hostel in Cladindow Junction, abstinent, 3 chances, you're out. I'd gone through 3, give me a couple more. Anyway, I'd gone back to RHYL because I'd failed there, and I'd been on the streets of RHYL, and I'm not used to this life, and I'm just not, I'm a big guy, but I'm just not built for that sort of living. So I tried to end my life, and I couldn't. I ended up in Glenclwyd Hospital, and they brought me back. And one of the guys from the hostel got me in another house in Penmaenmawr. Turned out to be a Christian house. I didn't know this at the time. And yeah, just when I was still drinking a bit, when I had this new start, I thought, right, this is my chance. So I stopped drinking a couple of days, and then, it started up in my head again, and I had to keep on drinking again. And my mum just got in touch, and she said she was going to church and back in touch with her friends that she knew from when she was a child. So I thought, well, this is my great way to just, I'm in a Christian house, I'll just go to church. I don't want to know about it all and all that, but I'll just go just to see my mum. So I started going every Sunday to see my mum, and I know something just took a grip of me. At the time, I didn't know what it was, but I knew something was happening inside me.
Mm.
So kept going to see my mum, but then after church, I'd go back to Penmanmawr and go into my room and drink. And it was February. I got baptized on the Sunday, went home to do my normal drinking, and I just took a sip of the cider. I'd gone to the shop and bought what I'd normally get, and took a sip of this cider, and just tasted like vomit. And so I checked the date, and it was in date. It was a cider that I always drink every day, and it just tasted like vomit. So then I knew that was like God saying to me, "No more." So I poured it away, prayed, went to bed, woke up, gone. No
Oh,
desire to drink,
amazing.
no depression, no anxiety, and yeah, just grew from there.
Mm.
So a few months without the drink, I joined the food bank.
Mm.
Dave Jones had actually met me in the homeless shelter 12 months prior
Oh,
to
wow.
me going to church, so it's
Yeah.
good for him for me
Mm.
to come through the door. And yeah, 18 months, joined the food bank. It was going strong. I'm married. Family's back in touch. Driving again because I'd always lose my license drink driving. So I'd spent 31 years and I'd lost everything. And then in 18 months, through church and this team around the food bank, I got it all back and loads more. So yeah, there's loads more in between, but yeah, that's the base of it. So
Yeah, that's amazing that, and I appreciate your honesty, being so open and honest about it, and the fact that, you know, people welcomed you in, accepted you as you are. And I think in this time with COVID now, we need to be so much more accepting of each other. And I think that's the beauty of the food bank, is that it doesn't matter where you are, it doesn't matter your situation, it doesn't matter who you are, it doesn't matter what you're going through or what you've been through. We're here to help. There's no judgment. And as you said before, you don't need to feel embarrassed. You don't need to feel like like you're too good for this, because everyone is struggling right now. Loads of people have lost their
yeah,
jobs. Loads of people have been put on furlough. I'm very fortunate. I still get a full wage. I'm very, very fortunate, and I count that as a blessing.
yeah.
But so many people don't get that. A final question to finish off with. What can the community do to help at this time?
Yeah, that's a good one again. So, as I've mentioned, we have drop-off points all over, but some like include banks, smaller shops. So, with operating hours, it's a bit more trickier. But people can do their normal shop and collect like a carrier bag of tins or anything long life, cereals, beans, soup, anything that sort of category, or get in touch and ask us what we're needing, and that you can literally you can't literally walk into Sainsbury's. Sometimes there is a big queue, so I know it can put people off. But if you are going Sainsbury's shopping anyway, take your bag of tins in with you, and you can drop it off at the base of the tills as two big drop-off points. That's the best one. With obviously COVID, it makes it different with all the other places, smaller hours, and obviously if you come to the bank, you want to be in and out. You don't want to be dropping tins off.
Mhm.
Also, you could just do your regular shop and build up a carrier bag, or even if it's two tins. We are grateful of literally every tin. Again, get in touch. King Store Food Bank on Facebook. Contact details are on there,
Mm.
and we will come to you. You can leave it on your front door, and we'll pick it up. So
Mm.
there's no interaction. It's safe, and because you're blessing us so much that
Mm.
with that we can help so many people. So the last thing we want you to do is just make a journey with 2 or 3 tins to us,
Mm.
and take that sort of risk of with everything going on. So definitely, if you're in Sainsbury's anyway, drop off
Mm.
point. If you've got, doesn't matter what it is, get in touch. We'll pick it up. Also on the Facebook page, there is a link to a donation, a safe PayPal donation link. So you can contribute as much or as little as you want. You know, literally £1 will get me 5 tins of peas. So a lot of people go, oh, I've only got £2, but that's like 10 tins of peas. That's like 3 or 4 families worth of peas or carrots at the same price. You know, I do that much shopping. I just know how much is. I walk through supermarket. Oh yeah, that's cheaper. That's cheaper. Just trying to save the pennies, you know, because if it was my money, I just, yeah, that'll do, yeah. But you know, it's the people's money, so I'm quite, savvy with the money, with the shopping. So, but yeah, donations. If you're self-isolating and rightfully so, don't want to just come out for all that journey, you know, you can get in touch. You can transfer money. You can get in touch. We can give you the details, or like I say, through our Facebook page, and that has a PayPal link on there, and basically then we can just do the shopping as we're out. So keeps everybody that wants to help safe, and just keeps this going. We, as a team, from myself and the team, just want to say a massive thank you to everyone, not just in RHYL, business people, individuals, you know, collecting food, everybody over the 8 years that it's been going. You know, it's just so we're just so thankful that we're still going and we're able to help in this time of need, and that's only because of the public.
Definitely, and as always, I'll put the links to all the social medias, the website, the donating page, everything will be put down below. So if anyone does want to donate, and it's an incredible cause, and as you've heard today, it's an amazing story, not just for you, Richard, but for the food bank in general. They'll be linked in the description, and I encourage everyone to go, if you're able to, obviously, to go and donate something. Doesn't matter how little, how much it is, it will make a difference. And I've been really encouraged by how RHYL as a community has come together to support one another. And I think you guys epitomised the true idea of community is supporting people in whatever need they are, loving them, accepting them. Doesn't matter where they are. It doesn't matter, you know, you're accepting them, which is fantastic.